What's happening, y'all? This is Andrew from Mirror Music 99, back with, well, this is not really a reaction video this time. This is a English teacher bar breakdown. As many of you know, I've been an English teacher for over 20 years now, so um, I am marrying that skill of, breaking down poems and talking about, like, the intense poetics of how lyrics are put together with learning about hip-hop. So, Coop is teaching me a lot. That's one of the reasons we actually started this channel, is so he could teach me more about the genre. So I've been doing bar breakdowns of and reactions to Nas's Magic 3. This is going to be a bar breakdown of the second verse of Sitting With My Thoughts. I usually don't do a whole song, like the entire lyrics bar breakdown, because YouTube isn't really conducive for that. To do a full bar breakdown, like a poetic analysis of the entire song or any entire Nas song, would be a 30 to 45 minute probably video, and most people don't really have the patience to sit and listen to that entire thing. I probably, honestly, if I were on the other side of this, I probably wouldn't either. So I'm going to try to keep it short and to the point, or to the point-ish, as much as my English teacher brain can stand. So here we go. Those of you who have watched me do this on Thomas and Morris Instruction, which was my other YouTube channel that YouTube deleted after being 10 years old and 17,000 subscribers, or who have watched me do this in a classroom setting, know that when we analyze a poem, we read it out loud first. So like I said on the last one as well, I am not going to try to rap this. I'm not going to try to mirror Nas's cadence for this, because I just can't. But I do think it's important to say the words out loud, because poetry, for almost all of its history, has been a medium that you're supposed to listen to. I mean, it is effective on the page as well, but is meant to be spoken aloud. And I think if we don't read it aloud, we like miss some of the stuff going on. And again, you guys are smart enough to know what this verse is about. I am just going to talk about, like, how he accomplishes that, and some of, like, the small details in how it's put together. So maybe if you're an MC, or maybe if you're interested in, like, creating your own poetry or your own rhymes or whatever, you can use some of these lessons to create your own as well. You're not learning from me, the master, you're learning from Nas, the master. This is the second verse of Sitting With My Thoughts. Whole time I'm writing this, I'm typing some people back who need me to get them in places. Type of shit is that. I'm a concierge for most people I know. I'm in the studio with Hit, Cash App, and my folks. That come with being great. It's a lot on my plate. I would give it all away for a smile on their face. Shout out to rappers who inspired me in my beginnings, who I inspired right back when they pen was dwindling. Sitting with my thoughts, thinking what it cost. For peace of mind, I'd go crazy if I couldn't rhyme. I finally took time to drop constant releases. I finally put me first, the intro on the sequence. Don't need a new assistant, I'm just too persistent. Officially efficient, I see it through to the finish. So complete, I'm not a control freak. Personal chef flow, I make sure that we all eat. I saw something else that I want to make sure I write down before, so I don't forget to say it when we get to that place. All right, so I mean, y'all are big boys and big girls, and you understand what he's talking about. He is talking about the idea that he is responsible for a lot of people now, right? And he is responsible financially for a lot of people. He is responsible, like, psychologically and emotionally and support-wise for a lot of people too, as well. So that's what he's talking about, right? I mean, that's the subject of what he's doing. But I want you to see some of this intricate poetic stuff. Now, I'm going to go into a little bit of poetic terminology, because when I want to be really clear about this too. You don't have to know poetic terminology to know how to rhyme, and you don't have to know poetic terminology to create stuff like this, and you don't have to know poetic terminology to appreciate this either. In my classes, the kids always say, some version of learning this stuff is like pulling back the curtain on the Wizard of Oz, right? It's you get to see how an artist or a poet is making you feel what you're feeling when you hear it. Does that make sense? So you get a little, look behind the scenes, so to speak. So I'm going to use some poetic terminology, teach you some poetic terminology, just so we can have like a common language as we go through this. I assume you guys know what couplets are. There are two rhymed lines that go consecutively, right? If you're writing that rhyme scheme out, it would be like A, B, B, etc., right? With each rhyme being different, with each letter representing a different rhyme. And I assume you all know that, but that's something that most people would have covered in school. Maybe you haven't heard it in 35 or 40 years, but that's something that might be familiar to you. But anyway, this is rhymed in couplets, right? But it's what's called slant rhyme. I'm going to write that down here. Slant rhyme. A slant rhyme is a kind of rhyme where a poet or a writer is mirroring the vowel sound at the end of the word, but not the consonant sound. Often they are similar kinds of consonant sounds at the end, but not the same. So the first pair right there is a good example of that. Back and that. Right? It mirrors the ah sound, but they both have the ah sound in them. But one of them ends with a k and one of them ends with a t. But both of them are sounds that come from the same part of your mouth. They're both sharp sounds, like k, t. I mean, they're both kind of spitting sounds, sort of. So they aren't rhymes in the cat, fat, sat, bat kind of way, where the consonant and the vowel are the same, but they are rhyme. They're called slant rhymes, which is where they're just mirroring the sound. And when you say the lines out loud, type in some people back who need me to get them in places type of shit is that the back that it sounds enough the same that it counts as a rhyme. Does that make sense? So anyway, all of these lines, with one exception, which we'll get into in a second, rhyme in couplets. So know and folks, plate and face. See how that works? Like the A sounds are the same, but the T are different. But that can still count because it sounds the same way. It says, "There's a lot of my plate is smile on their face," right? It sounds the same when you're saying it out loud. Beginnings, dwindling. Now these two lines we'll get back to in a second because those are different. Releases, sequence, persistent, finish, freak, and eat, right? Eat. The E's are the same here. Istant, sistent, and finish, right? You have those sounds that are similar at the end. It's really cool, though, because none of them, not a single one of those that I just said, are pure rhymes. They're not words that are like Dr. Seuss rhymes. They're not ones that rhyme exactly. They just sound similar enough to work as rhymes, which is pretty cool. It also expands the palette of language, right? It expands the amount of words that you can use. It expands your pronunciation guide. Like people can like say different words slightly differently to make them fit in certain rhymes as well. So it's really cool how he does that, which brings us to these two lines right here in the middle. Now, they're important for a couple reasons. One, he's right there sitting with my thoughts. That's the title of the song, right? So we know that that's going to be important because this is where the title comes from. I mean, I know he says sitting with my thoughts repeatedly throughout the song, but that's one of those things that you should understand about poetry analysis, is when a poet uses the title of the piece. They titled it that for a reason, right? So they're trying to draw your attention to that point, right? And one of the other ways he draws your attention to this point is that this is the only couplet right here, now the only pair of lines in the whole verse that doesn't rhyme, cost and rhyme. What it does do is rhyme internally. So it rhymes, he's rhyming thoughts and cost and mind and rhyme. And both of those are slant rhymes too. Because thought and cost, that's even closer. It's if you were going to be like show off, he's showing off a little bit because he's taking the TS and the ST and he's flipping it a little bit. Again, another one of those fun little poetic things. Also, he's taking the S here and mirroring it with the S here, and the T here and mirroring it with the T there. There's so much going on in there. It's like a mirror, right? And it's a magic trick, which is one of the themes of the album. But there's the I and the rhyme. It's not the letter, but it's the sound, right? So those two lines don't rhyme with each other. They rhyme. Each line rhymes with itself, right? Which is an interesting twist on what he's been doing throughout the whole verse. But it's also another way to draw your attention to the sitting with my thoughts part, which is the part that he wants you to notice. I mean, that's the whole point of the song. He wants you to sit with his thoughts for a little bit, to see how he has superseded and gotten out of the situation he grew up in, and is still bringing that with him, but at the same time is now wealthy and famous and so forth. I want to show you another thing that he's doing too. We talked just a second ago about like the couplets, right? Know and folks, played and face. But another thing that he does, let me give you a different color here. Another thing he does is uses sounds to connect across couplets too. Like this line and this one don't rhyme with each other, right? Each of them rhyme with the previous or the next one. But he does connect those two lines with sounds. Look at the S and T sounds in those lines. So in the studio with it, Cash App and my folks, shit come with being great. It's a lot on my plate. That is what, 5, 6? That's 6. And if you count the 11 at the end too, it's kind of echoed in the background. That's even more, right? So, and then the S's, right? The S, Cash, folks, come with being great. It's a lot of, so it's taking a lot of similar sounds and using those to connect the lines. This is not a sonnet. It's 16 lines and not 14, but it is not terribly distant structurally from that either, actually. He's got, would you call this where he's drawing your attention to the middle of it and drawing your attention to the theme of the piece, really. We would also call that the turn if we're talking about poems or sonnets, where the argument flips or is reflected or changes angle a little bit. So everything that comes before this is sort of one thought. This stuff that comes after is a different thought, right? This one is, it's about it's about the I, but it's about what he's doing for other people. This part here is, except for the last line really, is about what he's doing for himself, right? So it's, one is outward facing and one is kind of inward facing, which it fits when you change it up with sitting with my thoughts, right? That thought kind of refracts the argument that he's making. But look at what he's doing at the end too. Look at all the F sounds in here. We're gonna get a different color on that one too. Here we go. So finally, drop constant releases. Finally put me first. The intro on the sequence. Don't need a new assistant. I'm just officially efficient. I see it through to the finish. Control freak, chef flow. Right. There's tons of F's in there. And it's not that complicated, but it is intricate, and it is a way to kind of unify the whole section, right? There's at least one of them in every single line of that, which is kind of cool, right? So if we're talking about poetic terminology too, this right here, these two lines, that's called parallel structure. That, let me write that down. Parallel. And you see lots of great poets do that. We're going to pretend that says parallel structure in my horrible handwriting. But parallel structure is where you have two lines of a poem or even any written piece that are similar in how they're put together. And this one starts with, I finally did this, I finally did this, right? That is called parallel structure, and he does that too, as a transition into the last part. I do want to draw attention before I get out of here also to this last line right here. Personal chef flow, I make sure that we all eat. I think I said in the reaction video that this I heard as a reference to Raekwon. Maybe it's not, I don't know, but I know they call him the chef, so I'm assuming since they're touring together, and as far as I know they're friends, or at least closer colleagues, then that would be a shout out to him too. But the phrase make sure that we all eat is another one of those that could mean several different things, right? He's putting himself in a service position, right? He is, again, saying that he is responsible for the people around him, the people he came up with, his family members, etc., right? I make sure that we all eat. And he's in some ways saying that he's creating these songs as a way, this is his way to share his wealth, both of knowledge, of skill, but also his financial wealth with the people that he cares about. So there's that meaning. I mean, obviously the phrase making sure that we all eat is a phrase that you hear in like athletic context too. Making sure, in basketball context, it means, making sure, at the point guard, make sure everybody eats, right? The point guard is making sure that everybody gets to score sometimes, gets some shots, gets evenly distributed, right? Same thing with wide receivers. If the quarterbacks are making sure everybody eats, that means all the receivers are getting their own catches, right? So he is referencing that too, as in like we all get a turn to do something great and be something great. He's also saying, just in a pure financial way, that this is making enough money for everybody, in a literal sense, right? Everybody around him can eat off of, literally speaking, like can buy food because of what he has created as well. All right, we're going to finish up here. I hope that was helpful. If you want me to keep doing these, again, make sure you say so in the comments. I want to keep doing this if this is helpful and interesting. Also, if the structure is helpful and interesting, as in like I'm doing a reaction to the song and then doing a breakdown of the verse kind of and releasing them kind of simultaneously. So if that's cool, if that helps you, if you think that's awesome, please let me know in the comments. If you'd like me to do it a different way, also let me know that. Anyway, take care of yourselves, and I'll see y'all next time.